The story of how Indonesian became the language of Indonesia is actually pretty crazy. If you haven't thought about this much, you might be thinking like, well, of course they chose Indonesian, bro, it's Indonesia. But obviously Indonesia didn't always exist, so of course they didn't call Indonesian before that. Indonesia is an extremely diverse nation with literally hundreds of different languages and ethnic groups. So when you're trying to unite all these people into one nation, how do you go about deciding what that language is going to be? As a former Dutch colony, they could have done what a lot of nations have done and just choose the language of the colonizer. Like a lot of African nations did this with French or English. Not out of any loyalty to the colonizer, but as a mutual inconvenience that everybody can unite over. Because sometimes it's weird to just choose one of the ethnic groups and say, you're the official one. But Indonesia didn't choose Dutch and they went a different route. Today, and back in 1945 when Indonesia was founded, the largest ethnic group in Indonesia is the Javanese people. And in 1945, 40% of the population spoke Javanese as a native language. So if they're not going to choose Dutch, they might as well choose Javanese, right? In a very unprecedented move in nation-building history, they chose a language that was only spoken natively by 5% of the population, Malay. In terms of the proportion of native speakers, that's like if the European Union became one country and then chose Dutch as their official language. Although it's a little bit different. Malay had a history of use as a lingua franca in that region, and at the time of founding, at least 10 to 15% of the Indonesian population knew it as a second language. So Indonesian is essentially a standardized dialect of Malay. Now you might be thinking, well, didn't they just do the thing where they chose this one ethnic group and said this is the official one? And the answer is kinda, but not really, because ethnic Malays are less than 2% of the population, and again, the language was chosen because of its use as a lingua franca, not because of its association with the Malay ethnic group. The craziest part of this story, though, is that it's estimated that today, 95% of the Indonesian population speaks this standard form of Malay, Indonesian. Like, it's only been a few generations since it was declared the official language. However, what's interesting is that a large proportion of the population speaks it as a second language, which they learned in school, while they speak a different language at home. However, there are some linguists who have concerns that this will gradually lead to a lot of Indonesia's minority languages losing speakers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.